Adam Johnson. Adam Johnson went from England international to convicted criminal in one of football's most disturbing falls from grace. The former Manchester City and Sunderland winger was sentenced to 6 years in prison in 2016 for illegal contact with a 15-year-old. Johnson, who earned 12 caps for England, initially denied all charges but later pleaded guilty to 1 count of inappropriate activity with a minor and 1 count of grooming. The case shocked football, particularly as Johnson continued playing for Sunderland even after being charged, with the club only suspending him after his guilty plea. The investigation revealed Johnson had been exchanging messages with the teenage fan who he knew was underage. Despite having a girlfriend and young daughter, Johnson arranged to meet the girl in his Range Rover where the offences took place. Johnson served 3 years of his 6-year sentence before being released in 2019. His fall was complete, from playing in Premier League stadiums to serving time in HMP Moorland. Bruno Fernandes de Souza. In one of the darkest cases involving a professional footballer, former Flamengo goalkeeper Bruno Fernandes de Souza was sentenced to 22 years in prison in 2013 for his role in the murder of his ex-girlfriend, Elisa Samudio. Bruno had been a rising star in Brazilian football, even tipped as a potential future goalkeeper for the national team. But his career collapsed after prosecutors revealed he had arranged for Elisa to be kidnapped and killed during a dispute over child support. Her body was never found, and witness testimony painted a disturbing picture of how the crime was carried out. The case shocked Brazil and the wider footballing world. Bruno went from being one of the country's top goalkeepers to serving a sentence that effectively ended his professional career at the highest level. His conviction remains one of the most serious punishments ever handed down to a footballer. Joey Barton. Joey Barton's career was as much about courtrooms as it was about football pitches. In 2008, the Newcastle United midfielder spent 77 days in Strangeways prison after being jailed for assault and affray. The incident happened during the off-season in Liverpool city centre, where a street fight left one man with a fractured skull. It nearly ended his career before it had truly peaked. Behind bars, Barton claimed he found perspective. He read philosophy, reflected on his actions, and said the experience changed him. But this was far from his only scandal. He stubbed a cigar out in a teammate's eye, attacked a youth player in training, and built a rap sheet that rivaled his playing stats. Yet somehow Barton rebuilt his career, turning out for Newcastle, QPR, Marseille, Burnley and Rangers before stepping into management. A career defined as much by chaos as by comebacks. Duncan Ferguson. Duncan Ferguson became the first professional footballer in Britain to be jailed for an on-field incident when he was sentenced to 3 months in prison for headbutting Raith Rovers' John McStay in 1994. The incident occurred during a Scottish Premier Division match between Rangers and Raith Rovers. Ferguson, frustrated by McStay's defending, turned and deliberately headbutted his opponent. The referee missed the incident, but television cameras captured everything. Ferguson was initially given a 12-match ban by the Scottish FA, but the Procurator Fiscal decided to pursue criminal charges. The case set a precedent that on-field violence could result in criminal prosecution, not just sporting sanctions. Ferguson served 44 days of his 3-month sentence in Barlinnie Prison in Glasgow. Remarkably, he returned to football and continued his career with Everton, where he became a cult hero despite his reputation for aggression. Marlon King. Marlon King's career was defined as much by his criminal record as it was by his goals. Over the years, the striker served multiple prison sentences for offences ranging from assault to fraud, with a string of driving convictions and harassment charges also following him wherever he went. The most serious case came in 2009. While out at a London nightclub, King assaulted a woman who had rejected his advances. She had been celebrating her engagement at the time. The attack left her with facial injuries, and the court sentenced King to 18 months in prison. The incident shocked the football world and made King a pariah. But this was far from an isolated lapse. His rap sheet included repeated run-ins with the law, and yet despite the headlines and the controversies, football clubs kept giving him chances. Hull City, Coventry City, and Birmingham City all found themselves managing the fallout of his behaviour, weighing his ability to score goals against the chaos he brought off the pitch. Mickey Thomas, the former Manchester United and Wales midfielder, was sentenced to 18 months in prison in 1993 for his role in a counterfeit currency scam. The case was bizarre even by football standards. Thomas was managing Wrexham when he became involved in passing fake £10 and £20 notes. The scam involved buying small items with counterfeit notes and keeping the genuine change. Thomas used his position and reputation to help circulate the fake money. The investigation revealed Thomas had been passing counterfeit notes in shops around Wrexham, taking advantage of his local celebrity status. Shopkeepers trusted the famous footballer and didn't scrutinise the money closely. Thomas served 4 months of his sentence before being released. He later claimed he was naive about the seriousness of the offence and didn't realise the potential consequences. Lee Hughes was sentenced to 6 years in prison in 2004 for causing death by dangerous driving and leaving the scene of an accident. The case destroyed the striker's career and life. Hughes was driving his Mercedes when he collided with another car, killing passenger Douglas Graham and seriously injuring 2 other people. Instead of stopping to help, Hughes fled the scene and went into hiding for 36 hours before surrendering to police. The investigation revealed Hughes had been drinking before the crash, though he wasn't over the legal limit. His decision to flee rather than help the victims turned a tragic accident into a criminal offence. Hughes served 3 years of his sentence before being released in 2007. He attempted to rebuild his career with Oldham Athletic, but the stigma of his conviction followed him throughout his remaining playing days. Luke McCormick, Plymouth Argyle goalkeeper. Luke McCormick was sentenced to 7 years and 4 months in prison for causing death by dangerous driving while drunk. His case was one of football's most tragic criminal stories. McCormick was driving home from a team function in 2008 when he crashed into a car carrying a family. 2 young boys, aged 8 and 10, were killed in the collision. McCormick was more than twice the legal alcohol limit. The goalkeeper had been drinking at a Plymouth Argyle event and decided to drive home despite being heavily intoxicated. His decision to get behind the wheel had fatal consequences for an innocent family. McCormick served 4 years of his sentence before being released in 2012. He returned to football with Plymouth Argyle, a decision that sparked controversy and protests from some fans who felt he shouldn't be allowed to resume his career. Jermaine Pennant served 3 months in prison in 2005 for drink driving, while banned and driving without insurance. The Arsenal winger's stint behind bars came during a troubled period in his career. Pennant was caught driving his Mercedes while disqualified and uninsured. The incident was part of a pattern of reckless behaviour that included multiple driving offences and other legal troubles. Remarkably, Pennant was allowed to continue training with Arsenal while serving his sentence in Feltham Young Offenders Institution. He was released during the day to train with the club before returning to prison each evening. The arrangement was controversial, with critics arguing that footballers were receiving preferential treatment from the justice system. Despite his legal troubles, Pennant managed to rebuild his career, later playing for Liverpool, Real Zaragoza and other clubs. Tony Adams, Arsenal legend. Tony Adams served 58 days in prison in 1990 for drink driving. His case became a turning point that led to one of football's greatest redemption stories. Adams crashed his car while driving under the influence, an incident that highlighted his struggles with alcoholism. The England captain's conviction shocked football and forced him to confront his drinking problem. His time in Chelmsford prison was a wake-up call. Adams used the experience to address his alcohol addiction and become an advocate for addiction treatment in football. Upon his release, Adams returned to Arsenal and enjoyed the most successful period of his career. He led the club to multiple titles while becoming a spokesman for addiction awareness in sport. Ronaldinho. In 2020, Brazil legend Ronaldinho spent 32 days in a Paraguayan prison after entering the country with a fake passport. The case was bizarre and damaged the reputation of one of football's most beloved figures. Ronaldinho and his brother Roberto were arrested at their hotel in Asunción after presenting forged Paraguayan passports to immigration officials. The documents were quickly identified as fake. The brothers claimed they had been given the passports as gifts and didn't know they were fraudulent. However, investigators found the explanation unconvincing given their sophisticated nature. Ronaldinho's time in Agrupación Especializada prison was surreal. The former Ballon d'Or winner played football with inmates and reportedly organized tournaments behind bars. The case was eventually resolved when the brothers agreed to a plea deal involving community service and fines. Ronaldinho's month in prison became an embarrassing footnote to a glittering career. Rubén Semedo. In 2018, Portuguese defender Rubén Semedo, then playing for Villarreal in Spain, was arrested and later convicted of kidnapping, assault and illegal firearm possession. According to reports, Semedo and several accomplices tied up and assaulted a man in his home before forcing him to hand over money and valuables. When police investigated, they also discovered firearms at Semedo's residence. The case sent shockwaves through Spanish football. Semedo was sentenced to 5 years in prison, though much of the term was suspended after he reached a deal with prosecutors. He spent several months in custody before being released on bail, but the severity of the charges nearly ended his career altogether. Despite the conviction, Semedo eventually resumed playing football, though the incident left a permanent stain on his reputation. Benjamin Mendy. Manchester City's Benjamin Mendy was charged with multiple serious offences in 2021, leading to his suspension from the club and a lengthy legal battle. The French international was accused of crimes against several women at his Cheshire mansion. Mendy spent time in custody while awaiting trial, including periods at HMP Altcourse in Liverpool. His case dominated headlines for over 2 years as the legal process unfolded. The defender was eventually cleared of all charges in 2023 after 2 separate trials. However, his career at Manchester City was effectively over, and he left the club as a free agent. Mendy's case highlighted how allegations alone can destroy a footballer's career, even when they're ultimately found not guilty. The 2-year legal process cost him his prime playing years and his reputation. These stories remind us that football fame doesn't guarantee good judgment. From drink-driving disasters to serious criminal charges, these cases show how quickly a career can be destroyed by poor decisions. The prison gates don't discriminate. Whether you're a World Cup winner or a lower league player, the law applies to everyone equally.